All right, boys, we're back. Heart of the Order, episode 1 of the 2020 season.
Season 2.
Season 2. Heart of the Order 2.0. I'm here with Dre, as you guys all know. You probably don't know what his face looks like, but now you do, since we're kind of starting on the whole video aspect now. And welcome to the Heart of the Order. We're gonna welcome Michael Brookhart, Brooksy.
Hello.
Welcome to the shit show that is the Heart of the Order.
It's an honor to be here for season 2.
New cleanup hitter. I like it.
I'm more of like the 2 guy, just like the contact hitter.
We're switching order here. 2, 3, 4. I like that better. It is a new age of baseball where the 2-hitter is much more important.
Much more important. As you guys probably know from last week, we tried to get this thing going, but Dre had camera issues. Brooksy ran into a hairdryer fire, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Yeah, the hotel I was in, the fire alarm went off due to someone else's hairdryer.
Yeah. So Heart of the Order 2.0 started off the perfect way. As we all know, it's kind of a little always wild here. And that's kind of what brought it. That's kind of what brought it to the end in the first place. Is the great schedules. So welcome back, and we're gonna get this started off with a little spring training talk. Teams have reported to spring training. Guys, baseball is back. It's the best time of the year. Games have started. What are you kind of looking forward to over the next month and a half until opening day?
Well, I guess I'll say I'm just happy that it's back, to be honest. I miss baseball a lot. There's been a lot of movement within when talking about free agency and stuff like that. So MLB has completely shifted. Including the Houston Astros, which I'm sure we'll get into a lot later. But they lost Garrett Cole, and now seeing him on the Yankees, so that's number one. They are going in as one of the favorites, if not the favorite. So I'm excited to see them and how that team kind of comes together. I'm excited to see how the Dodgers and that team come together. But more so just happy that it's back more than anything. I miss baseball, man.
I mean, it's definitely like I think the best sound of the year when pitchers report and like you start hearing the pop of the mitt, and someone shared a video on Twitter and it was
my jacket.
Like, it sends like tingles up your spine. It's awesome. I mean, Brooksy, what about yourself? I mean, what are you looking for?
I mean, I think I'm looking to years past. Like I think last year, Bryce Harper wasn't even signed. I even think that may be the case with Machado too. Like comparing how slow last offseason went in terms of moves and what people had to talk about. And then this year, like even non-baseball people have a somewhat clue of what's going on, and that's good for the overall buzz of the game. I mean, of course, like cheating scandals are never good, but it's fun where we've seen a bunch of players, I'm sure we'll get into this in a little bit, like Chris Bryant, Mike Trout, like speaking out against the scandal in a league that used to be like much more like buttoned up. They're getting a little bit more free. There could be biting. I'm looking forward to seeing how that progresses in the next month and a half until play gets started.
Yeah, I mean, we can kind of get right into the Astro scandal, as some of our viewers might know.
If they don't.
If they don't,
they need to listen.
Yeah, we're going to recap a little bit. Mike Fiers, who was a former Astros player, kind of came out earlier this offseason and basically blew the whistle on the Houston Astros that they were using a sign stealing. I don't even know how to
mechanism called a system.
I guess there's a bunch of like names for it that could be used. I mean, they were banging on trash cans. They were reportedly using buzzers under their jerseys. Proof of that hasn't come out yet, but they were definitely using kind of a trash can banging system to steal signs using a video in center field that was kind of set up. And this whole the whole news breaking, everything that went down is just nuts. It's kind of
more comes out every week.
Yeah.
That's just like jaw dropping. Like just yesterday, there was the news in that one World Series game with Clayton Kershaw, and he threw like 51 sliders, changeups, any sort of like off speed pitches, and 0 swings and misses.
Yeah.
So if that's not a telltale sign that the hitters are being tipped off, what is? So we're going to continue to get that information day by day.
That's crazy.
To the end of it.
But that just puts this whole thing in a microcosm, because like Clayton Kershaw got nasty off-speed stuff. So for them to lay off, and this was in Houston. I did see clips of that. This was in Houston, and that's kind of where they were able to use that advantage. Just did not help them on the road, because in some of the things that I saw that were eye-popping regarding this, not only could you hear the banging of the trash can when in some of their lesser games, but you start to see some things like one of the pitchers, he said his career was affected. He's now filing a lawsuit against the Houston Astros. Like, again, this whole thing is just spiraling out of control, and it's nowhere near done. But the Kershaw thing, again, completely alarming, just because some of his, he has some of the best off-speed stuff in the game. For them to just lay off all of it, completely wild, just insane to me.
There's so many like sidebars to this. Like it's I mean, it's all focused around the Astros stealing signs, but like there's so many different just like sidebars that you can take. I mean, it's Manfred's handling of it, it's who was in charge of it, because there's been like 3 different things that have come out. First it was Alex Cora, then Carlos Beltran was intimidating like younger players, then there was a code breaker system that came out from the front office when the front office said they had nothing to do with it. And then it was the opening of a spring training and how Jim Crane handled it in his press conference, and the crappy apology that Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman had. And then, I mean, there's Manfred calling the commissioner's trophy a piece of metal. Like, the way that everything has gone down over the past like month and a half, 2 months is absolutely crazy. And it's kind of left this black eye on baseball, and it's not going away anytime soon. I mean, you guys see an end to this? How does this come to a conclusion?
I mean, I think at this time, like, the only end in which there's some sort of appeasement is player suspension. But that just gets so murky, where it's only going to generate more conversation. So I just think in terms of appealing the majority, that's suspending the players. This is a player-driven scandal, and there needs to be like some action taken there. In terms of what that is, oh man, yeah, because that would just cause havoc even more.
Yeah, I mean, at first, like, Manfred gave the players immunity, to so they could come forward and like they could try to figure it out. But it didn't seem like anything kind of came to a resolution from that. I mean, the AJ Hinch said he had nothing to do with it. Jim Crane fired the GM and the manager, and it just, new information just keeps coming out left and right. The Astros are pretty much completely dening it. They used any buzzards. They keep saying,
don't believe.
Yeah, they keep saying there's no evidence found. Like Carlos, from what I've seen, Carlos Correa is the only player that has come forward and said there was absolutely no buzzers.
Of course he is.
Whatsoever.
And I don't blame him, because this thing is so bad that the buzzers just make it 50 times worse.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff he said regarding this, he's completely tone deaf, to say the least. I think he's handling it terribly. One of the things that I saw was after the first spring training game, clearly, I mean, they were booing that team like crazy. And when they asked him, like, how are you going to be able to deal with this? He's like, I didn't hear a thing. Like, I understand he's trying to put it behind him, but also, like, at least address it head on. And him just saying that they're not booing, he didn't hear anything, it's only going to make it worse, because there are going to be people out there that will make sure that they hear him boo, like hear their boos. So
you almost wish they would just double down on it. Like, double down at least on what happened in 2017. Be like, yeah, it happened. Like, a lot of teams may do something similar. This is what we do. Boo us all you want. Embrace the bad guy.
Yeah.
If anything, but yeah, they're looking for sympathy in the wrong places if it comes to that point.
Yeah, and they seem to be feeling guilty about it, but like, they won the World Series and it's not going to be stripped. Ultimately, I think that should be the end game. It's going to be super hard to, I think, suspend players for this, but if I was Manfred, I would take away the World Series trophy. I really would. I didn't think it would come down to it, but because if you look at it, and this is my belief, like in college football, they strip wins, they strip trophies. Reggie Bush has been stripped. The thing about that is you can take away the hardware, but you can't take away the memory. So like in the end, they are still winners, but I guess in the public eye, it's like, well, they took away the trophy, so we're all happy. I think you should do that just because that's the easiest way to say, hey, like this wasn't earned. I don't care what you guys say. You had your parade, you did it, but there's a black eye. And that's just, Jeter said it, Max said it, the black eye is going to be there. And in order for there to be some sort of healing, you got to do the most drastic thing. And I think that's it.
Do you think like it would mean because he's already come out and said, Rob Manfred has already come out and he said he's not taking away the World Series. Do you think at this point it would still be okay of him to like basically backtrack on his comments and go and take the World Series away?
I'll just keep it short and sweet and say this 2 words: public outcry. And we're seeing a lot of it, a lot, especially right now within the players too, of Major League Baseball, and it's only going to get worse from there. Everything's going to get louder. So public outcry, I think, is what's going to make him have to do it.
That was more than 2 words, Trey.
Sorry. You know me. This is exactly what I do.
32 words.
This is a lot of. I wish I had a word count at the bottom of the screen. But yeah, I mean this whole process is just wild. It's going to be ridiculous. Kind of see how it comes out and what happens on opening day. I mean, Jose Altuve was already hit with a pitch, whether it was on purpose or not, who knows? But he was hit with a pitch in his first spring training bat, which I kind of found absolutely hilarious. So we'll kind of see how it comes out. I mean, I think there's still information that will be coming out sooner or later. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how the MLB handles it, what happens to the Astros down the line. And it's kind of interesting to see how it's affected people just around the league. I mean, there's a story that came out in The Athletic, I think it was a week and a half ago, about Chris Archer and how it was when he was with Tampa Bay and he was pitching against the Astros. And the Rays won the game. It's like 6-4, but Archer let up 2 home runs or something like that, I think. And one of the Astros players, and this was back in 2017, one of the Astros players called Archer after the game and was like, "Hey, you were tipping your pitches." When in reality, now he knows that they were stealing signs and using this technology to steal signs, and he was doing nothing of the sort. So it's kind of crazy to see kind of how it not butterfly effects, but just kind of spreads across the league and just little things. I mean, like you said, the pitcher that's suing the Astros because it affected his career.
Yeah, and I think it's Danny Farquhar. Don't quote me on the name, but yeah, him filing a lawsuit because of the banging. And there's a video. It's actually him. There's a video where he hears the banging and he calls his catcher out to the mound to stop the game because he hears it, but he doesn't address it in terms with the umpire or anything. He addresses it with the catcher. And from there he gets shelled, and then he gets cut the next day, and he never made it back to Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
I mean,
the story's not done.
Yeah, it's nowhere near done.
It was just 2 years ago or 2 days ago that it came out. I'm not sure how substantiated it is, but they said that this whole thing of what the Astros were doing in 2017 was reported to the league, and then nothing was really done.
Yeah.
So I think if anything, like that just sort of points out and makes a black eye on Manfred, and maybe he's the one just to go down in all this.
Yeah, I mean,
it would be the one that we can deal with that.
I think it was kind of known throughout the league, and people had reported it and things like that, but no one ended up. Like, I think it was like a known fact throughout the league that they were cheating, but like nothing was done about it. And I think that's the most ridiculous part of it, is that people knew what was happening. I mean, it was even happening in the World Series this past year, and the Nationals came out and said they were literally changing their signs like probably every batter or every other batter because it was that bad.
And I've seen some people say regarding the situation that stealing signs happens in baseball all the time, and it does. You can't, that's part of the game, but using technology is a whole nother level. And I'm sure we'll find out more information. I think it's true with the buzzers, just based off the video of Altuve hitting the walk-off and the whole jersey thing, like, don't touch me, and then comes out without a shirt on. I saw a picture where he wasn't wearing an undershirt. before the inning before his at bat, and then he comes out and he hits a homer. He's wearing an undershirt, and they're like, no, like he's like, don't touch me, after whatever, and then the excuses fly from there. So just things like that, and then the other thing that I guess really bothers me is your boy Mac, Big Poppy, calling Fires a snitch. Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Just because, he was part of it. And I also want to be clear saying this. The pitchers had nothing to do with this. They're the ones that aren't going to be affected by this. Guys like Cole Verlander, like, it doesn't affect them whatsoever. But a guy like Poppy calling Fires a snitch is like calling the kettle black because he took steroids. He also cheated. So I don't understand. Like, the weight that's on Fires, his conscience, like, he knows it's wrong. There's nothing you can do about it. And him finally speaking up and Poppy calling a snitch, I don't like that.
But so, like, I think, all right, since you brought it up, I'm going to defend my guy here.
I know you are, and that's cool.
I'm going to defend my guy. So, like, I don't agree with him calling Fires a snitch, but I agree with kind of how he said it and the fact that why did he wait until now? Why did he could have said something while all of this was going on.
Yeah.
He knew it was wrong, and there have been players on the Astros that have kind of come out and said they knew it was going on, but they didn't, like, participate in it. Like, I think Tony Kemp was one of them. I think if I might be wrong with the name. But, like, why not say something then when it happened? Like, I agree with that point, but calling him a snitch, I don't agree with, because it had to have come out sooner or later. So I'm like 50-50 on him.
Yeah.
And how he handled the situation.
I mean, we should less be dissecting how the guy handled the situation and more what he was coming forward about.
Yeah.
I mean, not saying that he gets to keep his World Series ring if it comes to that, but there's no need to use the snitch word on him.
Yeah, I just think that's kind of harsh.
I agree with that.
It's going to be interesting, and again, this kind of reverts back to Brooksy's point of they might have actually told Manfred, and he just didn't do anything about it. Like, I guess we'll find that out based off, again, what Brooksy said and possible involvement there. That hammer could come down, because if they did tell Manfred and he didn't do anything about it back then we're looking at a whole different level of stuff here.
Yeah.
All right. So Astros basically cheated in their 2017 World Series.
And then
now everything has come out. So we'll see how it comes out the rest of the season, see what happens as opening day approaches. But for now, we can move on into kind of other things that have kind of slid under the table over the course of the offseason, been trades, things like that. The big one that I kind of want to start with, the Mookie Betts trade. It's considered the Mookie Betts trade, but, like, is David Price, like, how big of a piece is David Price in this trade, guys? I mean, he was a World Series MVP 2 years ago. Big numbers. Brought Boston a World Series. He played big in the playoffs. I mean, how big of a piece was he?
He was only included in this trade because his contract was so bad.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with calling it the Mookie Betts trade, but I think, if anything, the Dodgers get a good lefty arm. So it's definitely like they're getting high value, but they're also eating a pretty big contract cost.
One of the biggest in the league, that's for sure.
And just to be clear regarding David Price and the contract, they have to eat it, but the rich get richer, because you're talking about a rotation that already features Kershaw, Walker, Buehler as well. They did have, basically you're swapping out Price for Maeda because they sent him to Minnesota in a separate trade, I believe.
Yep.
I think they improved the rotation there. But the biggest thing, again, the Mookie Betts trade, this lineup, geez, this freaking lineup top to bottom, 1 through 8, is stacked. Good luck, rest of Major League Baseball. But I will say this, they can have the greatest lineup in the world, but that bullpen still stinks.
Yeah.
So they did everything that they could to avoid addressing the bullpen and somehow improve their team, and they had 109 wins last year. They improved their lineup that already smashed the franchise record for home runs, adding a 10 more player. But they're going to end up winning every game like 16-14 if that bullpen can't shut anybody down. Like, I don't know how they avoided addressing that.
I mean, when you put Cody Bellinger and Mookie Betts in kind of the same lineup back to back, I don't know how the lineup's going to be formed, but it's going to be dangerous. And I think we all know that. But if the Dodgers can't win a World Series with this lineup and this staff, then like, what is there to say about them? Like, are they just cursed, or?
That's the word I was thinking.
like what's next for these guys if they can't win with this lineup? I mean, Mookie Betts is probably more than likely going to be gone next year unless they offer him like a king's ransom in free agency, because he said he wants to test free agency no matter what. So basically he's like a 1-year rental. But like, this team has to do something sooner or later, or I would assume something big is going to happen in LA. But yeah, I mean, so I guess we'll see what happens there. And then any other big off-season moves, guys, that kind of caught your eye?
Garrett Cole.
Yeah.
Definitely Garrett Cole for me. Number one, the Astros lose. In my opinion, he won the Cy Young. I thought he was robbed. I understand giving it to Verlander. But the Astros losing Garrett Cole and then him going to the Yankees and making them a lot more deeper rotation-wise, which is one of their weaknesses. To me, that vaults them to the top because talk about the Dodgers lineup top to bottom, the only, if not the better lineup in Major League Baseball, the one that rivals the Dodgers is the Yankees, top to bottom 1 through 9. It's unstoppable. But now they get a Cy Young caliber pitcher anchoring that rotation down that already features Paxton and Tanaka and did feature Luis Severino.
Well, Paxton is also out until like April too.
Yeah,
he had back surgery.
But the biggest thing is that the biggest thing here is that the contract he got is insane. It's the largest for a pitcher ever. Again, addressing a weakness, but for them, injuries, I mean, that don't matter. They were ravaged with injuries last year too. So if Garrett Cole goes down, then they're in trouble. But the fact they got him and addressed that weakness, again, the rich get richer.
I have a hard time, like, if I was ever MLB general manager, I would have a hard time giving any pitcher that amount of money. Like, I can't remember the specific numbers, but like, that number is just so big.
Yeah, it helps when it's, I mean, especially like the length of the term. But, you know, are you looking at it now, Dre?
I'm pulling it up now. It's $324 million total, and I believe it's over 9 years. That's $36 million a year, average annual value.
Because you got to think he's what, like 26, right?
27? No, he's 20. I think he's 29. But he's
going to be 38 by the time that contract runs out.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any opt-outs either, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, that contract, absolutely insane. But if you're the Yankees, this is what you do. You know, you're all about winning championships. It's your history. I know Matt kind of hates it, but that's just the nature of the rivalry. Bottom line is that they got their guy. They tried to draft him years ago. He did not go there. And then the Pirates got him, and I know the Yankees were in trade talks for him. Their patience finally paid off, and I think it's really going to help them.
And odds that he stays for the full term of the contract?
I'm sorry?
What are the odds that he stays for the full term of the contract?
I don't think there's any opt-outs, so he would have to stay. He's not a – yeah. Oh. Actually, he can opt out at age 34. So the 5th year. After 2024, he can opt out. So odds are he's going to opt out, but he might stay if they're winning World Series championships.
But so is it a player's option though, or is it a team option? Do you
know? Player.
Okay. Because I mean, because at that point in his career, like if he's dipping, you would think that he would opt into it. To continue his.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. You know, and that's part of the part of the negotiation that makes Scott Boras so great for him to get that into this contract to where Garrett Cole can control his own destiny. If he's dipping, then, he'll be set. And I think he stays. But again, we'll find out come 2025. I'm looking at these figures, and it's just $36 million a year for 9 years.
That's 70% of the Pirates' payroll.
Makes me sick.
You put it in that term. But I think, in going off of your point, Dre, with like the rich getting richer, I think it's interesting to look at that, but then also to look at this like tier of a lot of teams that are always just sort of in that middle that took a lot of advancements. So like the White Sox, they acted early and often. The Twins, they got Donaldson, Maeda, and then also you got the Reds. And like the Reds were incredibly like active in free agency. So like there were some teams up top, maybe if it's like Chicago, Boston, that were much more inactive than I would have thought, that sort of gave room for these middle teams, even the Diamondbacks, to also like make acquisitions that in previous years maybe Mike Moustakas would go to Chicago or Boston, like a bigger tier team, but now they're going to sort of that middle level chunk.
Yeah.
And hopefully that like creates a little bit more competitive balance. But I think that's interesting looking at like the amount of free agencies that or acquisitions that those teams got.
I like the move that the Diamondbacks made with bringing in Bumgarner, and then they also got Starling Marte from the Pirates, obviously, and they made some good moves. And then I think the Angels were another team. I mean, they brought in Rendon, to put next to Mike Trout, and I think that's a huge move. I think they need a little bit more pitching, like they always do. It seems like, but I mean, I'd like to put those two superstars next to each other in a lineup and kind of see, plus Joe Madden, kind of see what they can do. I mean, the Angels are normally a team that kind of sniffs the playoffs, but this move, like they're literally, we talked about this so many times on the podcast last year, that literally you have probably one of the greatest players of all time in your lineup, and you're literally just not doing anything with him. Like you sign him to a 10-year deal, one of the biggest of all time, and like you don't make the playoffs. Like they got to do something. They got to make moves. Bringing in Rendon, I think, is the good start to that.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things with the Angels is that this year, Shohei Ohtani is going to end up back in the rotation. And you have his bat as a DH, so that's good. They already featured Justin Upton as well. But signing Rendon is really good because it adds that 1-2 punch. Like you can no longer pitch around Mike Trout. Try to, but now you have Rendon there to back him up. So there's that. That, I must say, is my favorite move of the offseason because I'm so sick and tired of not seeing Mike Trout in the postseason.
Yeah,
he's the greatest player that we've ever seen, and they've done nothing to help him. So this is a big step. I agree with you, Mac, that they need more depth in their starting rotation. But I definitely want to touch on the White Sox as well. Like Brooksy said, the moves that they made, absolutely awesome, because that's a team that broke, tore it down and then built it back up through the draft in international prospects and trades. And now they realize that their window is wide open, and they have such a young core. That was one of the teams that I'd loved to witness their growth last year, them and the Blue Jays. But to see the White Sox essentially be active early and realize that, hey, the window is wide open, when they anchored down the catcher in signing Yasmani Grandal to that 4-year, $50 million contract. I really like what they did, and for them to do that and essentially open the window and say, bust through and say, hey, we're coming for the Twins. Real happy. Southside Chicago should be baseball there should be fun this year.
Definitely. And so there's kind of, when we were talking about this before we started recording, there's something just popped into my head. Did you guys, speaking of Madison Bumgarner, did you guys see the story about how he has an alter ego where he goes to rodeos on the weekends and participates in rodeos as Mason Saunders? Did you guys see this story at all?
No. Was this recent?
Yeah, so like I guess the story just came out, and I guess in December he won like $26,000 at a rodeo, and he enters these rodeos as Mason Saunders.
This is like in Parks and Rec. Ron Swanson have the alter ego of like the saxophone player.
And like I wanted to talk about it, but I completely forgot about it until now, until I said his name.
Oh my gosh.
So
Yeah,
fun.
I Googled it, and so apparently a Giants affiliate, so like his former team, a minor league affiliate, are having a Mason Saunders rodeo night as well as their like minor league promotions.
I gotta say, when I heard this, I actually laughed. And Mac knows, I don't know if Brooksy knows, I'm the biggest Mason Bumgarner hater out there. But I saw this and I was like, I was even happy because to me that's awesome. Like if you go to his baseball reference page, they have nicknames on there, and his nickname's Mason Saunders.
Friday, June 5th. Clear your calendars, boys. We're going to San Jose.
Road trip.
And it's just the funny because it makes me think of like what these guys kind of like do in the off season or do in their free time. And I mean, what was it like 1-2 years ago that he was hurt riding a 4-wheeler or something like that?
Part of the reason why I hate him.
Like, like now he's riding a rodeo. Like, what does this guy do in his off season? I just thought it was a funny story. Kind of makes me think of what some of these guys do, just kind of in the off season and stuff like that.
And that would be one thing I would not expect him to do.
Yeah, not at all. Riding a rodeo, no, not at all. Mason, I mean, Madison Bumgarner. I mean, he kind of looks like a guy who could ride in a rodeo.
He looks like a Mason.
Yeah,
he's also like pretty big guy, and I'm thinking like, how do people not? Like, where does it take place? He just does it down in like, I'm assuming where he's from.
I think it's in like the middle of the desert, pretty much. I would assume.
Like, know who he is, basically. I hope it continues.
Me too. I want to see him win a couple tournaments or whatever you would call rodeo events, I guess.
Yeah, is it a tournament? I don't know. I'm not a big rodeo guy.
That's why I was like, I have no clue. Like an event, I guess. I have no clue what to call it. But so the last thing I kind of wanted to touch on was we kind of touched on it a little bit, was the Severino injury. Kind of came out yesterday that Brian Cashman basically stated to the media that Luis Severino has a torn UCL, correct?
Yeah.
And he probably has to get Tommy John surgery, which would leave him out for the rest of this year. I mean, this guy is one of probably the best pitcher that New York has, outside of Garrett Cole, and he's on the IL, or in the words of Greg Malik, the disabled list.
DL forever.
So I mean, how much does this hurt kind of the Yankees guys? I mean, they got Paxton on the IL and the DL already after back surgery. Tanaka's coming back. Garrett Cole's there. I mean, is this big? Is this big for the Yankees?
It's big in the sense that they lose pitching depth. To me, he is our unquestioned number 2 starter. He's definitely their second most talented starter. And that's a guy that was injured all last year, until late, and he came on, and I don't know. I know he didn't start. He might have came out of the pen, but he worked his way back to starting. So for them to lose him already, you're just seeing the same song and dance that happened last year with the Yankees, and they still won 100 games. So I would like to see how they address this, and it'll probably be addressed at the deadline. But in terms of the instant impact now, it sucks. But I would assume that they'll be able to persevere from this, being that it's so early.
Yeah, it makes them, I'm sure, thankful that they have J-Hap. I mean, at this point, if you have pitcher injuries, like, you see the effects of that even more down the stream than just with the starters. If you don't have those guys that are consistently going out there and eating 6-7 innings, that's putting added work onto your bullpen arms, and you sort of can see like the downstream negative effects that may have. I mean, I think in the short term, I think they'll be fine. They'll persevere. Like Dre said, I'm sure they may need to address something at the deadline, but they're they're not getting any of my sympathy. They are fine.
That is a good point, Brooksy. I like the attitude you're bringing here.
I'm not gonna lie, I do too. It's just, again, you'd like to see the rich kind of take a hit. So
eat the rich.
You always do.
Election year.
2020. Michael Brookhart, Craig McAfee.
Let's go. Let's do it. So that's kind of all the time we have time for today, guys. Thanks for joining us for the first episode of Hodo 2.0 of the 2020 season. We're going to be bringing you news all year long. It was fun to get started, guys, but thanks. Have a good day.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Glad to be back.
Thank God.
Talk Astro scandal next week.